Schmicago, my god, hey everybody, welcome back to my stagey YouTube channel. If you're meeting me for the first time, hello, my name is Mickey Joe and I am obsessed with all things theatre, which is why I have been so enjoying the Apple TV Plus series Schmigadoon. Season 2 is currently airing and it takes us to the dark and brooding location of Schmicago, inspired by the musicals of the 60s and 70s. Shows like Chicago and Cabaret and Pippin and Godspell and Hair and many more that we will be discussing in today's video, because today I am going to be breaking down all of the musical theatre Easter eggs and references in episode 4. Did I do that all in one take? That's very unlike me. So if you haven't already seen the first 3 videos in this series, the 3 episodes so far have had so many musical theatre references. We're now on to episode 4 and we're getting on to some very exciting things, but at the same time there's also a lot of plot that we had to deliver in this episode. So I feel like this is the one where maybe there were a few less references. But in the songs we did have, they piled so many references into those songs that we still have a lot to talk about. So bear with me, I'm going to talk you through all of it. We're going to do all the references. I'm going to give you my little review of this episode and how I feel like the series is going, because we're getting near to the end of this series. These seasons are not that long. And I'm going to recap what happened for you in this episode as well. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure to subscribe to my channel. Go and check out the other Schmigadoon Season 2 recaps if you haven't watched them already, and make sure to go and watch the other Schmigadoon analyses currently out there on YouTube. Not only is my good friend Mark Bonani, aka Broadway by Ghostlight, delivering you all of the Schmigadoon goodness with amazing behind-the-scenes videos, as well as his Schmigadoon Schmakedowns, but also the wonderful people over at Stealing Focus have also been analysing all of the many Easter eggs in Schmigadoon, so go and check out their videos as well. Now, let's talk about what happened in episode 4 of Schmigadoon Season 2, aka Schmicago. So at the end of the last episode, we had a little bit of a cliffhanger. Things were getting very tense. Josh had just been declared not guilty at this very show-stopping trial, and he and Melissa had decided that now was the time for them to try to leave town because they got their happy ending. So in the beginning of this episode, they arrive at the famous bridge, but they find themselves once again unable to cross it. We have yet another reprise from Titus Burgess, who continues to play this leading player from Pippin-style character. He's been getting progressively more villainous as we're going on. He got very sinister towards the end of the last episode, but at this point he's just downright annoyed with Josh and Melissa, and he has no time left for them whatsoever. He's just a man trying to do his job. We see a couple more storefronts which are homages to different composers. We saw a bunch of these in the last episode, with references to Sondheim and Kander and Ebb and Stephen Schwartz. The only one I can make out, because they are quite in the background and defocused, was one for Cy Coleman. Cy Coleman, who you will know from musicals like City of Angels, and it was, I believe, a Cy Coleman restaurant. So, you know, that's nice for him. In another shot, we see something to do with Leighton painted on the side of one building. That's not a musical theatre composer reference, but it is a reference to Kristen Chenoweth's character Mildred Leighton from the first season of Schmigadoon. I'm fascinated about what happened to her in the time jump between Schmigadoon and the world of Schmicago, that is now painted on the side of a building. Like, something went on there. We then go for quite a while without a song because we have a lot of plot to contend with. Josh and Melissa, basically considering what had just been said to them, come to the realization that they may not need to just make a happy ending for themselves, but they may need to help everyone else in Schmicago, which is not the happiest place, unlike Schmigadoon, to find their own happy ending. In fact, this is kind of what they ended up doing in season 1 of Schmigadoon. They brought a lot of resolution and peace and harmony and growth to the town of Schmigadoon, whether they realized or not. While they are discussing all of the characters they've met so far, we hear a lot of the underscoring of those characters' songs. We hear a little bit of a nod to the Barber and his wife theme when we're talking about Dooley Blight. We hear a little bit of Kaput, I believe, when we're talking about his daughter Jenny Banks. It has been pointed out to me in a YouTube comment, shout out if you were the person who did this, that Jenny Banks, the initials JB, she's also filling in for Joanna from Sweeney Todd. Joanna Barker. JB. If I was really on my game, I feel like I ought to have noticed that from the first episode, to be completely honest with you. There's a great line in this scene where Josh talks about maybe killing baby Hitler, and Melissa questions what year he thinks they're in, and he acknowledges that it's actually very hard to tell because we have very mixed references in terms of what time period we're meant to be happening in. But when Jenny decides that she no longer wants to speak to her father and would rather believe that he was dead, Josh comes up with the decision to take her back to the hippie tribe that he had been staying with with in the last episode. Aaron Tveit's character Topher comes out and acknowledges the return of Josh, the prodigal son. He then quips, "Somebody write that down." This is a reference to the parable of the prodigal son from the musical Godspell, because he is not just this hair hippie character, he is also Jesus from Godspell. We have come to understand that by this point. If his vibes weren't giving it away enough, the eye makeup is, and that may even be a clue as to why his name is Topher. Is it short for Christopher, aka Christ? Is that the missing part of Topher? The nickname draws attention to what's not there, the Christ of it all. More on that later. So he starts delivering a parable, but Josh and Melissa, keen to redirect this to a heavy-handed message about encouraging Jenny to talk to her father, give him so many suggestions that he becomes frustrated, and we get another fantastic moment where he becomes a completely different Jesus. He becomes Jesus from Jesus Christ Superstar and gives us an angry Jesus Christ Superstar song. It's very brief, but it does have that feeling of one of Jesus's angrier moments in something like What's the Buzz or The Last Supper. Also very My Temple Should Be a House of Prayer, Get Out, Get Out. If you know the song, you know why I'm not attempting to sing that into the microphone. I'm just going to speak the lyrics for you. It also ends on a delicious high note. What is iconic musically from Jesus Christ Superstar? That high note in Gethsemane. And shout out to Aaron Tveit for doing it. Excellent work, sir. But in his absence, Josh and Melissa have to tell the parable, and Melissa, realizing that everyone in the tribe hates her, encourages Josh to go and start out the song. I like that Josh, Keegan-Michael Key's character, is a lot more game to get involved in musical numbers this season, and seeing him and Melissa so in sync has been really satisfying after all the discord they experienced as a couple in the first season. And if we don't know what this song is meant to be straight away, other than a little bit of a lyrical nod to maybe the story of Lucy and Jesse from Follies, it's pretty clear as soon as they hit the chorus and sing "Talk to Daddy" that this is meant to be the Rhythm of Life from Sweet Charity. Now, I'd forgotten about the Rhythm of Life completely because we'd already had this Sweet Charity reference in the first episode with this "Hey Big Spender" nod, and I forget that Sweet Charity has this completely out of left field moment with Rhythm of Life, which is not too far from a hippie tribe and fits right in with these characters. As this song continues, we see sock puppets coming back. Aaron Tveit had a sock puppet in the jail scene in the first episode. I don't know why I'm doing this as if I need to show you what a sock puppet is. And there is a scene in the Godspell movie where they are doing this with their hands, but they don't have socks on them. Is the sock puppet reference meant to be anything else other than Godspell? Let me know if you know in the comments section. Musically, we get many more nods to the Rhythm of Life in this song. We even have a little bit of a choral moment from the ensemble later on in the song, and we get another Sweet Charity song mixed in there as well. We get the Rich Man's Frug. Frug? Frug? I don't know, I only see it written down. Not only a reference to the music of that particular song, but also the choreography, the iconic Bob Fosse choreography. We even get a featured dance soloist with a long ponytail, whipping the ponytail around and doing the iconic Rich Man's Frug choreography. It's wonderful to see, and Christopher Catelli has once again done an exceptional job of taking those iconic visuals and transposing them for a new number on screen. Much as with everything else in this series, it is quite clearly done with a huge amount of reverence and love. Unfortunately, this whole attempt to convince Jenny to get in touch with her father does not work. She decides instead to go and comfort the angry young man in the tent, talking about Aaron Tveit's character Topher. She goes to speak to him, and Titus Burgess's leading player decides that we're going to switch to them instead. This is one of the few scenes that we will see that doesn't feature Josh or Melissa. And to make it even more atmospheric, he playfully switches it to be nighttime. So at this point, I'm wondering what this song is about to be in the tent. Is it going to be an I don't know how to love him style thing, since we're already leaning into Jesus Christ Superstar? But what we end up getting is an incredibly earnest and sincere scene between these two characters, where both of them, who have been playing up these campy parodies of the characters that they are inspired by, let their masks drop a little bit and become much more real people and form a very genuine connection. Dove Cameron is giving you everything in this season. Not only is she giving you the incredibly well executed musical numbers and a Sally Bowles so convincing that I'm ready to put her in a cabaret revival yesterday, but then this moment of vulnerability from her is just heartbreaking. She's really wonderful and becoming one of my contenders for like must get awards nomination recognition from this series. They then sing a song that I can't necessarily place as any specific musical reference. The introduction reminds me of something, but the whole vibe of it feels close-ish to Love Song from Pippin, which is just a very deliberately generic love song. And there's also something of a Disney to it as well, although strictly speaking with the time period that we're parodying here, this ought to be too early for that kind of a romantic Disney ballad, which is really more of a 90s feature. But I do like that this song can just stand alone as its own independent thing without having to play up a campy parody. Because even comedy musicals need a nice, sweet, sincere song. Ask Nabalungi from the Book of Mormon, ask Christmas Eve from Avenue Q. Meanwhile, Josh and Melissa are watching on proudly, comforted in the knowledge that they kind of made this happen, and in some way they have brought happiness to these characters. They decide that there's another couple that they could set up while they're on a roll, and they head back to Quick Street. As a reminder, this parodies the idea of both Easy Street from Annie and Fleet Street from Sweeney Todd to introduce two characters to each other who they think would be perfect together. Dooley Blight, Alan Cummings' Sweeney Todd parody, and Kristen Chenoweth's Miss Codwell, somewhere between a Mrs. Lovett and a Miss Hannigan. They enter Dooley Blight's premises, and once again we get the gag with the squeaky door. I was pointed out last week in a comment that this is a reference to the original cast recording. Very good catch, I do agree with you. And they convince him to go on a double date with them and Miss Codwell. At this point, Melissa is wearing another outfit that is giving me Barbara Streisand from Funny Girl, that I think has to be a reference to the Don't Rain on My Parade dress. Same colour, different style. Chenoweth, meanwhile, dresses up nicely for dinner and has very Angela Lansbury as Mrs. Lovett hair. Now, when Melissa pointed out in episode 1 that she didn't know this era of musicals well because she'd had a traumatic experience at Sweeney Todd as a child and they'd had to leave early, I wondered if that was going to be important, and I think it is. Because this whole romantic setup hinges on the fact that Melissa does not know the plot to these shows. In season 1 of Schmigadoon, she was able to help her and Josh navigate certain situations by understanding which musicals they were in. She helps him with Emma Tate by referencing her knowledge of The Music Man. But she is setting up Sweeney Todd and Mrs. Lovett with no knowledge of the consequences of this terrible matchmaking decision because she doesn't know Sweeney Todd. That's why she told us in episode 1 in the exposition that she doesn't know Sweeney Todd and that she left early. She doesn't know it's a horrible idea. That being said, the dinner scene is quite funny to watch because Dooley Blight has brought his meat cleaver as a sort of a comfort blanket, and then Kristen Chenoweth's Miss Codwell cuts his meat with it, sort of haphazardly. It's oddly sweet. Her character, Miss Codwell, has some lines at this dinner scene that are so very Mrs. Lovett. She says, "So shiny it is." The "it is," rather than saying "it's so shiny," is very Mrs. Lovett, as is commenting on the blade itself, like she does when he takes the razors out when she gives them to him in Sweeney Todd, and she says, "Them handles are chased silver, isn't they?" She also says, "Love me a man with a healthy appetite." She says a very similar thing to Toby when she first meets him in Sweeney Todd. Now, something else that happens during this scene, we get once again the running gag from this season, the "I'll drink to that lady," but we hear it in the background. Now, some of you in the comments section, there was 3 or 4 of you who said this, think that the "I'll drink to that lady," who has been popping up in every single episode, might be one and the same as Dooley Blight's believed to be dead wife. This would be very much in alignment with Sweeney Todd's believed to be dead wife Lucy, who turns out to be the deranged beggar woman in Sweeney Todd. Is Dooley Blight's wife still alive? Has she been roaming the streets of Schmigadoon, drinking cocktails and saying, "I'll drink to that"? It would be a hilarious way of tying those 2 different Sondheim references together, and I didn't necessarily believe it straight away when some of you were pointing out in the comment section, but the fact that he does not see her during this scene, the fact that they've included her in it, but we hear her but don't see her to give him a reasonable opportunity not to notice her, has me suspicious. At this point, I'm starting to think that you guys might have been onto something here. I claim no credit for this whatsoever because I did not come up with this one, but I will be so impressed if this turns out to be true. I'm now rooting for this to come to fruition. As they leave the restaurant, we see umbrellas overhead. This is a visual reference to the film The Umbrellas of Cherbourg, which was adapted for the stage in a very short-lived production here in the UK. Dooley Blight says to Miss Codwell, "Life is just a piece of shh," which is a reference to something the character of Sweeney Todd says in the musical Sweeney Todd. There's a hole in the world like a great black pit, and it's filled with people who are filled with shh. And we can see this coming from a mile off. We're about to get A Little Priest parody that, if possible, has even darker connotations than the original A Little Priest. We're not just baking random gentlemen who need a shave into pies. No, we are going to be killing orphans and selling them as meat. which would be horrifying if the song wasn't so much fun. So the whole thing conceptually is identical to A Little Priest. We have the Mrs. Lovett character and the Sweeney Todd character waltzing around as they do, delighting in imagining the idea of selling these children as cuts of meat, and where you have the very fun rhymes in A Little Priest and the very fun jokes in that, Cinco Paul has done a similar thing here with the names of these children and rhyming them with different cuts of meat. For example, Mutton and Sutton. Is that also a nod to Tony Award winner Sutton Foster? You know, it could be. That whole rhyming joke is also a nod to a specific section of A Little Priest where Mrs. Lovett and Sweeney Todd are playfully teasing each other with lyrics like Potter, something hotter, Taylor, something paler, Locksmith. And I kind of wish we had one like that in this, that one of them says that there's no rhyme to, but there's lots of other references to be packed into this song, which I'm going to tell you about now. Once again, like Alan Cummings' character did in the Barbara and His Wife song, where he really laboured the point and explained what it's about, there's another beautiful lyric in this one that literally says, no, because we're going to kill them and sell them as meat. Just absolutely hitting the nail on the head of defining what is going on in that moment for no reason whatsoever. Like, that was lost on absolutely no one. And that makes me laugh very much. The song seems to be called Good Enough to Eat. It started with a little bit of a nod to Worst Pies in London, the same way those two characters' introductory songs earlier in the season both did. And then we go into a new section that's a little bit more show-busy, that seems a lot like You're Never Fully Dressed Without a Smile from Annie. We get the orphans involved and performing oddly gleefully. They're singing about food, and they're a combination of Annie and Oliver-esque orphans. You cannot avoid the food, glorious food of it all from Oliver. And the happy melody that they're singing along to is also reminding me a little bit of Elegance from Hello Dolly, and maybe even All for the Best from Godspell. We go into a dance break that is absolutely referencing A Hard Knock Life, and then there's a particular bit of choreography where the children who are holding these giant leaves circle around Kristen Chenoweth's character Miss Codwell. It's a piece of choreography straight out of Schmicago, where the dancers do that with feathers around Billy Flynn, and the music that plays at that point is Very Beautiful Girls from Follies. We are getting a Follies reference, so maybe that thing I said earlier was in fact true. Finally, to end the number, we have the iconic Turkey Lurkey Time choreography that Michael Bennett came up with for Promises, Promises. I love that choreography so much, there is no way I was going to miss it. It's hilarious that they get the orphans to do it, and that's where they put it into the season. And my boyfriend Aaron spotted one final Easter egg. At the end of the song, they say, "Eat, darn you, eat," which is a reference to Smile, darn you, smile, from You're Never Fully Dressed Without a Smile. So those have been all of the Easter eggs and references from episode 4, as well as a little bit of a review of what happened with the plot. In terms of what I thought of this episode, like I said, there was a lot more plot we had to fit into this one. I do just feel like they're too short, honestly, because when you have full-length musical numbers, it eats up a lot of time, and we don't have the time to explore that many more things. I would love for us to have returned to Jenny and Topher after this, but it felt like they had that one segment and then we went to another. The whole thing is a little bit rushed. I feel like I've been waiting to enjoy this Sweeney Todd plotline, and now it's going by quite quickly, but it also feels very slow, especially in the early moments of this episode. I felt like we were waiting a long time for a really great song. I'm loving the references. I love the references on top of references. That's definitely something we're seeing more of this season. They've picked some really great shows that go together well. The Sweet Charity Rhythm of Life moment, I was just so blown away by how much that made sense with these characters. The fact that they've got this ensemble tribe that work for Hair and Godspell and Sweet Charity is a tremendous achievement. And like I said before as well, that lovely, touching, sentimental moment in the middle. It's giving you everything. It's giving you genuinely good musical theatre, performance and choreography. It's giving you heartwarming sentimentality, and then it's giving you high camp comedy horror by the end of the episode. There is nothing tonally that we did not get with this one. But because we only have so much time to be in each location, I always end up missing the parts of the world that we didn't see. We didn't get any of the cabaret-style Krat Club in this one. We didn't get Octavius Krat. Following on from his dramatic musical cliffhanger at the end of the last episode, I was very excited to see him in this one, but we haven't, which is making me worry that when he does plan something, that also is going to feel very forced and very quick. So this wasn't necessarily my favourite episode of the series, but it did probably give us some of the songs I will be listening back to the most. Let me know what you thought of this episode in the comment section down below. And as always, if you spotted any Easter eggs that I did not talk about, let us know in the comment section as well. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, make sure to subscribe to my Stagey YouTube channel and click on the link in the description to sign up to become a channel member for just £2.99 a month if you want to see my videos before everyone else. I hope that everyone is staying safe and that you have a stagey day. For 10 more seconds, I'm Mickey Joe Theatre. Oh my god, hey. Thanks for watching, have a stagey day. Subscribe!